Calling to order the board in our,
Thank you. In our finance meeting on April 1st, 2025 at 9:05. We have the full board here, Commissioners DeGroot, Minty, and Nichols. We have just a couple items on our agenda because I think we had a finance meeting a couple weeks ago or something. But first, do you want to take these out of order? Like maybe do the ERP first to let other people go?
That's a good idea.
Okay.
If Susan's ready. I told her she'd probably go after Spence Mountain, so.
Susan,
There you are.
I'm here. So we have it on our agenda just for the audience's sake as RFP discussion for new finance HR system ERP. We have Vicki and Susan and Sue and Kirby all with us. Vicki, would you mind at least starting us off?
Sure. As everyone's aware, we went out for RFP for a new ERP or finance / HR system several months ago. We had, I believe, 6 applicants, Susan?
Yes.
Originally, we narrowed it down to 3, and they're listed as ABC because since we haven't selected, it's still a kind of a confidential thing. Susan finished the reference checks on all 3 last week, so we wanted to bring the results to you, talk a little bit about funding, and let you know why we think our ideas are good ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll turn it over to you, Susan.
Thank you. I'm Susan Alexander, financial analyst for the county. I apologize, I'm hearing myself a few seconds later than I'm speaking. Okay, first of all, our current contract with our vendor expires December, or it already expired December of 23. It has a final optional renewal period that ends December 26, at which time we'll have been with them for 10 years. The overall goal of this project, as listed in our RFP, is to take advantage of this opportunity to realize efficiencies by reviewing business processes and taking advantage of the newest technology in order to support Pillar 5 of the county's community vision plan. Let's take a look at the handout. This is a record of our due diligence. And as Vicki mentioned, since we have not yet issued a notice of intent to award, much of this information and the information to follow shortly with the cost information is still protected and confidential. So the first section was our evaluation of the actual proposals. And you'll notice all throughout, B was consistently a number 1, C is 2, and A was 3rd. I will note that A is our current vendor. You'll also notice, though, when you look at the reviewers, we did have 2 reviewers that rated our current software higher than the other 2 at the time of reviewing proposals. Now, these reviewers are listed in the same order in both sections. And you'll notice that after the demos, those same 2 reviewers concluded that they did not see in demos what they expected based on the proposals. But still, it followed as a B, C, A order in ranking. At the bottom, you'll see our total. And there were a total of 175 points possible for each vendor. And you'll see the total that each vendor received. I know you just got them, but does anything stick out at you, or do you have any questions about the evaluation process?
Questions from the board or comments? Anything? Okay, no questions. You can move forward.
Okay. So, I do want to talk about our current vendor, as that would seem to be the easiest and fastest and most least expensive to continue with. We would be going to their new platform called, I'm not going to tell you what it's called, or that would give it away, sorry. But we would be going with their new platform. However, even the new platform does not have the capability to help us meet our objective. Not all modules are in the new platform yet. The ETA is the end of December of 26, which means we would be getting software as it comes out with bugs and whatever in it that we would need to work through. Because the modules are still not fully integrated with each other, we would continue to do double entry. It makes it difficult for reporting and tying information together between modules. The security access has not received any improvements. It's not granular enough, and it's difficult to manage. The reporting, the delivered reports are still formatted the same, which requires significant time to clean up the formatting into a usable form. But we were told we could build them in Tableau. Tableau is an in-app light version of Tableau, which still requires the vendor to connect the data sets and still does not give us access to some fields or data information. It is not end user friendly. It does require some technical acumen and significant training. The vendor only has one FTE dedicated to train and support Tableau. And this is a fairly recent development. Within the past year, they added this person. Workflows, which I define as process efficiency engines, are very basic and have limited configurability. Budgeting does not have enough stages for the process required by the state for reporting. And to add the additional stage we need would be additional cost and customizations, which then also require maintenance. Their HR core application will not be available. It was supposed to be March, but now they've pushed it back to September. When they moved their platform from the desktop to the cloud, they carried over and even introduced more inefficiencies. Many of the issues that we've had with the desktop version were carried over, such as our payroll is beyond the capability of this software, which results in multiple issues and manual processes. Data entry, there are no drop downs, which means more opportunity to introduce bad data. You have to sign with a mouse. There are multiple clicks to open an attachment, and then they auto download, which is very messy and requires housekeeping because it's taking up space on your hard drive. I could go on and on, but as one employee put it, our ERP system is the backbone of county operations and as such should be a priority. With the number of county employees who use the system and the time-sucking inefficiencies that are inherent in it, this should be a huge concern to our leadership. Vicki, if you would go ahead and please hand out the next handout. So this is the cost, and I want to note up front that there is room for negotiation on all three of these. So this is pre-negotiated cost.
And
I also
B
want to
is the
mention,
preferred, Susan, B
Yes.
is the preferred option. Is that right?
where do you see P?
B,
As
as
in
in boy.
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay.
So first of all, I wanted to mention that back in 2019, when you were doing your last RFP, no money had been set aside or budgeted for a system or an implementation of the system. This time around, Vicki has been saving for this 18-month project. And Vicki, if you would let them know where we are, please.
Okay, so last fiscal year, I put aside $601,000 for toward an implementation. I thought it was going to be over $1 million to implement. And we do have, I'm anticipating $1 million of carryover in the internal service non-departmental. So I wanted to use some of that if I needed to over the next 2 years in order to get a new system implemented. And I feel okay doing that. I mean, I wouldn't want to use it all. Obviously, I like to have between 200 and 500,000 in that internal, because there are years where our internal service departments run over. And so having a little bit more available is always important to me. So right now, I did budget for $500,000 to be spent toward this project in 2025 in the current fiscal year. I thought we'd be a little bit further along than we are right now. So if we do end up starting in this fiscal year, there is money budgeted. And then I also budgeted another $500,000 in the next fiscal year. So I do feel that this is attainable. Obviously, the monthly costs are higher than what we're used to. That would be eventually part of the internal service costs that are pushed out to the county departments that help pay for all internal services. And if the first couple of years, I think we should pay the additional costs out of the savings in internal services because those have been put there by the departments. So I feel like just to get people, give them a little bit of a grace period as far as their costs going up heavily. I think we should use some of those savings to pay for the first, while we're in implementation for the actual annual subscription. But I think after implementation, the efficiencies that we see will have an impact possibly on, hiring after people vacate or retire or whatever. I think it might have a little bit of an impact throughout the county, not just in my department, but throughout the county.
Okay.
What questions are there for Susan or Vicki or HR? Thoughts from the board?
I wasn't quite finished.
Oh, okay.
Right. If you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, actually, pause for 1 second though. Let me
Sure.
make sure there's not questions. Are there questions? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So regarding the costs, to put it in a little bit different perspective, first I wanted to address vendor C. And while it is more scalable and cutting edge, they use an object-oriented database. They've already implemented AI, but it's just not enough to justify the difference between B and C. You'll notice that their implementation cost, and then they don't have a 10-year subscription because they didn't give us the amounts for the last 3 years. So there is a 7-year subscription cost, and together that's double what B would be. So we've taken C off the table. As I talked before, A is our current vendor. However, I want you to notice something. If we take the implementation costs of B, which is the 562, 388, and the 100,000 at the bottom, and divide that over the 10-year period, that is essentially less than 1 FTE. In addition, if you look at the first year subscription costs, or even the 10-year, if you spread it over 10 years, that's 1 additional FTE. And I have absolutely no doubt that with the efficiencies gained in System B, we would definitely be able to attain 2 FTE savings, and most likely significantly more. So I feel like B would pay for itself, would pay for the difference of itself very quickly. So
Yeah,
the
they-
committee's recommendation is to go with vendor B with an 18-month implementation budget of $662,388, and that is before negotiation. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Also, I don't know if you wanted to speak to this. This is a very, anytime you do this project, it's very time consuming. Like she said, it's going to take us 1.5 years to get it implemented. We're going to have some staff that is pulled in a lot of directions. We may need to backfill a little bit. We might, like she has on here, she's put aside $50,000 over the 18-month period where we might need to have some additional staff, time and money put into it. Susan will be like the managing person for the implementation, but HR is going to be heavily involved. And they're already very small staff. So
Okay.
just a little heads up that, and the change between these systems is going to be difficult for people. In the long run, of course, we feel like it's the right thing, but the change that's going to happen and the training and everything that goes along with it it's expansive.
And we will have a very good change management plan in place. Sorry, it's hard hearing myself separately. We will have an official change management plan in place to address that and to help with some of that. But an implementation, as Vicki said, is never easy, but it can be managed. So the other things I had added is supportive cost, from experience and from people I've talked to. I feel it would be very important for several key staff to attend the vendors conference, which is coming up. So I've included that in there. That's a very high estimate, but I wanted to include that. I did include 50 grand, as Vicki said, for backfill and or overtime. And you need a contingency fund. So I've set aside 25 for that, for a total of 100,000 in addition to the vendor's proposal.
All right, questions and thoughts from the board? What direction do we want to give staff?
We should initiate negotiations with vendor B.
Commissioner Nichols, thoughts?
The vendor B, do you have peers that have used this one, or are we trailblazing on it?
No, this product is used by a lot of counties in Oregon. Susan has talked to some references for vendor B, and
I would like to note that our current vendor was not able to come up with more than one reference in Oregon, which was a significantly smaller reference. who is not using the new platform and is not using all the modules that we are.
I'd say there's probably, 10 out of 36 counties that use vendor B.
I would say you're probably correct.
I'd say it's probably the most used one in Oregon.
So is there consensus to direct staff to move forward with negotiations with vendor B?
Yes.
Yes? All right.
So I believe our
Okay.
process is that we have to actually
Yeah,
issue a
we'll
notice
just
of
continue.
intent to award,
Yes.
and then we can begin negotiations.
Okay. All right.
Sounds good. All right, thank you.
Susan.
Thank you.
Let's move back up to Spence Mountain Fund.
I did remember Jeremy told me he wouldn't be able to attend till 9:30ish.
Oh, so, okay, so we're a few minutes from that.
Yeah.
Okay, well then let's go to proposed budget.
Okay. So, where are we here? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, this document, this kind of recaps our prior discussion regarding the general fund putting together a budget that decreases or remains flat. And I've spelled out what happened. In order for these changes to be part of the proposed budget, there is $5,096,000 in SRS funds that are being used to fund patrol in the sheriff's office. And there's also $2,643,587 being used in the reserve that we set aside of LATCF funds. You can see.
Just a quick clarification.
Yes.
If, not being argumentative, just genuinely curious, how come we have almost 3 million left in LATCF and we didn't use that instead of SRS? I had
We
thought for
can.
some, I had just thought that's what we said was like use the remaining LATCF and then.
You had mentioned that. I don't think that was the
Okay,
consensus.
that's why I'm asking. I couldn't remember. Was that not the consensus?
I thought we were, because that is more or less restrictive, the LATCF, the SRS. Restrictive fund.
I don't think we should use any LATCF.
You would rather use all out of the SRS?
We can't use
can't.
any more. That's the most we can possibly use. So we've
Right, for
taken the
patrol.
patrol division and moved it completely out of the general fund now.
Yeah,
And we're still 2.6.
okay, I understand. So that's, so your thought was you didn't want to use LATCF and your thought was, In
Maximize
agreement.
the restricted fund.
okay, I just,
So
for some
And-
reason, I thought the conversation went.
And this is proposed.
Gotcha.
We've got, and I wanted to let you know up front too, the proposed budget is set. We have, we have a lot to publish and we had to just say, this is that, and it's budgeted. So any more decisions that we make will be done in the hearings and before we approve, so.
Okay, I just couldn't recall that part.
Yeah, but I mean, that's up to the committee and you guys and how that breaks down. But in the proposed budget, this is what's there.
Got it.
And then I kind of tried to explain how each department was able to decrease their budgets or why they were unable to. The majority of the changes have to do with a vacancy that's not being filled or an employee that wanted to reduce their hours and go to a lesser FTE. There aren't any laid off employees or anything like that in this proposal in the general fund. And then under that, I put down the internal service funds also increased or decreased their budgets. My budget is the only one that has an increase, and most of that is due to the implementation of a new ERP system. And the last time we met, I had asked for 2 years of hopefully not having to reduce staff. And that's the only place I have in my budget to cut it. And just to work on maybe through attrition, having vacancies that are left unfilled if the department can still function without them. I did have one employee ask that her hours be reduced, so I did put that into this proposed budget. So I do have a bit less than what I presented to you last time in my budget.
Questions for Vicki?
No, I mean, this is what's going to go to the budget committee and for hearings. And just been fairly consistent. I'll be looking for us to reduce the general fund allocations by $2,643,587.
Okay. Comments from you? Thoughts? Questions? All right. Vicki.
I had one more item to discuss. We talked about the grants program and
Yeah.
how you wanted like a discussion about ROI.
Yeah, we've had the program now for 3 years, I believe. So just getting a 3-year look back and just seeing,
Okay.
whenever we're implementing something, I think it's appropriate to take a look back and say, okay, how did we do?
Okay. So Don is here and he put together this sheet that you should have that goes over what he's applied for, what we've received. And I don't know if you want to give a little gander. And we did talk a little bit about ROI and grants, and Don has some insights on that type of discussion. Some numbers too. I just added this. So talk us through this.
So this sheet, as you all know, because you've done this a long time, government operations are not money-making operations. They're not a business.
Right.
Whether you're looking at a school budget, school district, or a government, you never have a true ROI. So you can look at it in terms of money that might have been brought in, but also, I think it's important to look at benefit on investment. And so there's the sheer dollar amounts that are on the spreadsheet. And on this sheet, I just wanted to point out, like, for example, managed grants. I mean, there's probably over $15 million worth of assets, financial assets and money for which the whole community benefits that are managed through the grants department, which isn't reflected in any kind of return on investment, right? However, it's important. It's critical, in fact, for a lot of operations in our county. And then one other point, as you recall, maybe 6-8 months ago, commissioners generously offered my services throughout the county. And so I actually had a bunch of folks come to me and get some help. So we've been consulting, and I've written down the ones we've done, which is benefit to those guys also, because not everybody can afford a grants department. It's expensive to have that asset. So so there's more to the picture than just ROI. The other thing I'll add is if we were to pull back a little bit more in terms of the time frame, we have currently close to upwards of $1 million waiting to hear on grants that have been applied for. And regrettably, we won't hear till September ish, but a lot going on. So it kind of is whack-a-mole, depends on the day, you know, how much we've brought in, how much we're costing. But it's a robust program. Definitely been a two-person. We just finished tourism grants yesterday. All the applications in, over $400,000 of the requests that you'll be seeing. So it's a big program, a lot of pieces. And I think a lot of benefit. And also, Commissioner Minty asked us about 8 or 9 months ago to put together a survey, customer satisfaction survey. I put a link at the bottom of this page. If you ever want to go on and look, people are saying about grants departments.
Are we advertising those comments? That was my whole point of it is they,
Only the good one.
well, but that was the point, is I think it needs to be spreading the good word about the good. I mean, we all know government takes a lot of criticism, and yet these grants help a lot of people, and I don't think we do a good job of sharing
Yeah, no,
that.
you're
So
right.
that was the whole point of it.
The feedback is very positive. We've actually gotten quite a few comments gives us suggestions which we've used and we've rolled into tourism and economic development grants users. One reason we hadn't is because the end number is so small. Like for 3 or 4 months, we only had 3. We've given out dozens of survey requests, but how often do we all do a survey we get from Delta Airlines or, we don't do them. Fact is, most don't. We're up to about 13 now. So we're getting to a point where we have enough to start pushing it out. And we will. Just simply have to have the numbers yet.
Well, and I mean, I don't need to take us too far down a rabbit hole, but I think it should be part of their either like post-grant requirement or whatever. So it's not an optional survey.
Oh.
It's give us
Oh,
some
okay.
feedback, and then we need to take that and
We've
push
been
that out
put-
on our
We've been
socials.
putting it on all of our closeout documents that we send for them, but it's always been optional.
Yeah.
We can
Well,
certainly
If
make
we're
it-
gonna give someone $25,000,
Right,
they
at
can
least
take,
they
they can
do.
take a sentence to
Right.
write something.
But what we're getting is good feedback that's useful. We learned some things. Didn't know from the user end. It was frustrating some folks. We fixed it. All 5 stars so far for the department as a whole. So super happy with the results. I'm just having a hard time thinking of new usernames to fill out this survey.
Dawn the grant man. We figured that one out. All right,
So,
Do you have any
questions for
questions?
grants or
Yeah,
comments?
So on the finance side of what we've spent in total, you'll see that we've spent just in wages 469,000 since we started. And we have reimbursed ourselves from grant indirect costs, 249,933. The grant project coordinator position is almost fully a position that can be reimbursed with indirect costs. The grant manager position is harder because that position is usually in the midst of applying and that kind of thing, and you can't get reimbursed for that kind of stuff. So there is a cost to the county, and it's, if you consider the amount of grants we've received, I think it more than pays for itself, in my opinion, but grants to the county and the reimbursement we get in indirect costs, it really decreases the amount of money that we're actually writing the check for, basically.
I appreciate putting this together. It gives us a picture of what we're able to accomplish with it. And then also getting feedback from people that are just borrowing your expertise, which thank you for doing that.
There's several more I haven't put on because we haven't clicked the submit button. Sheriff's Department, for example, there's some big ones out there we're working together to collaborate. We're not far enough along where I wanted to like legitimize them in writing yet, but there's a lot pending.
Good. Keep applying.
Anything else for grants or finance on that? All right. Last item, Spence Mountain Fund. This is a continuation item, and we have Tom and Stephanie and Jeremy all here. You guys can all come up.
So I've spoken several times to Jeremy and Stephanie about how to set up the financial picture of Spence Mountain. And I think about 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting putting Jeremy in the driver's seat as far as getting the ball rolling on some of the grants and the signature authority for some permitting and things like that. So in my mind, since we can't spend any road funds at all on Spence Mountain or Jeremy's time working on Spence Mountain, my thought was to open a sub-department within the Parks Department, which would remain under the spending authority of Tom and Stephanie and myself, basically, and Kirby. Or we would have to open a whole new, if the appointment of Jeremy under the Spence Mountain umbrella is going to be permanent, then I thought, well, I could open a new fund. I hate opening new funds, but we could open a new fund just for Spence Mountain. It'd be very similar to a sub-department under a fund that already exists. However, the spending authority would go to the Public Works Director and the Public Works, maybe not, I don't know how that would work. Who would have the spending authority under that? But I really don't know how you want the whole financial thing for Spence Mountain to be organized. Or how long, Jeremy? I heard that this was a temporary thing when you guys originally did it, but I don't know what the board's direction is on that, whether it's permanent or temporary. I don't want to set up a new fund if it's temporary.
I guess, so a few things from my perspective is, we have grants that are coming in that actually pay for administrative time, so I have planned on just billing some time towards those to pass the gas tax test. And in addition to that, right now, even Dawn, Vicky's one that can encumber like tourism dollars, but it sometimes starts with Dawn, and so there's a fourth person. And so just a little bit about what's going on is, so last week we pulled building permits. Vince, I guess, has been assigned to me for a week, and we went and got, these, submitted these building permits and whatnot. And then we have two small contracts. The old contract was the large contract for the purchase of the vault toilet. But we also have a crane pad preparation outside of that. We have to go dig a flat area. And then after the thing's set, we have to install a path to get, to the new restroom. And those weren't included in the original authorization. And in my opinion, I'd hate to do two separate quotes and run them through the board for all of that. And then that ability to encumber those funds so it's almost like Drew has to still go to three places, even though I have, let's say if it was signatory authority, I still don't have the ability to encumber those funds without having the blue sheet go through Stephanie and Tom for those two things. If we go that route, we're going to miss our May deadline for installing these vault toilets, which is going to miss the races that are planned out there, the mountain bike race, the running race. So it's just one of those things to speed things up. What I thought would be just having a separate fund, and in the long run, Spence has to apply for, we need a master plan really bad, and we need forest management grants really bad. Those are probably the next 5 years that we just need to really target and streamline those. I would certainly work with Dawn to do that. But I see that there's going to be funds coming in, and that there'll be administrative dollars out of those funds that we can help with. I just feel like, I guess without saying it, I can say it in more words. I'm passionate about Spence, and I'll move Spence forward. That's the assignment. I feel like Drew has felt like he's just caught in this washing machine of red tape, and I think I can help that.
Comments, thoughts, questions on the board or?
Tom, Stephanie?
I just wanted to say that we have done Dawn provided the blue sheet for the quote only, and that was giving Tom authority to sign for the purchase of the restrooms, and then that is all that's happened. So the rest could be taken over by Jeremy at any moment, but any further progression needs to be authorized. Even if it was Tom or Jeremy, it still needs to be blue sheet.
Thoughts?
Well, with regards to the temporariness, I think, at least in my mind, correct me, temporary, but that's kind of an extended temporary to back part.
Well, what do you think?
I appreciate your passion for it, and I do think you'll spend time on it because you are personally passionate about it. And so I'm fine in an interim having Jeremy work on things. I have been saying now for 2 or 3 years, I think we should use some tourism funding to hire like a part-time parks person, and Spence would be kind of under them and they could work with Jeremy. And I just think we should do that.
I think we need to make a decision and just go, whatever that is, right? So if it is, the decision of the board a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, hey, Jeremy, we want you to go get her done and do some stuff. Well, if that's the decision of the board, then let's just do that. If it's not, then just let Tom keep managing it. So I'm not in a position right now where I want to stand up necessarily a whole other thing or something, but from a finance perspective right now, let's say whatever you are more comfortable with setting up so that there's a fund available for him to just go and run with it. It looks like it's at least for the next couple of years, then go get her done. So let's just make a decision and go and empower somebody to go do some stuff. That's me. So if the decision of the board a couple of weeks ago was, hey, Jeremy, we want you to take on Spence. We know you're really passionate about it and you're out there a bunch and you have a lot of ideas and forest management ideas and all those. Great. Well, then let's give him the authority and go get her done. If it's not, then let's say, nah, it's fine. We're just going to leave it. So.
Okay, so I think we have 3 different thoughts.
Very different thoughts.
So I just want to make sure I have understanding.
Set up
So
a fund and let him go.
So
Or
for Commissioner
don't.
DeGroot, it's set up a fund for Jeremy and go. For you, it's something
No,
part-time.
I definitely agree with that, and
So
I
then
think
there's
that
consensus.
that even makes room at some point for your idea.
So
Okay, let me.
set up a new fund and go.
Okay.
New fund. Set it up and go do her.
Okay, so it sounds like we
I
have
love
2
that
people
face.
on the same
You
page.
just made me smile. Look at that.
So I-
With a grin even.
I have a short-term ideas. Allow me to encumber the funds that are there underneath the sub-fund for parks and then,
This project's in tourism grant funds right now. It's not in the parks yet.
but
Well,
Right.
it's going to be. There's a transfer to the park. There will be a transfer.
Do the other ones then.
So what I'd like to do is set up a sub-department within the Parks Fund just for Spence Mountain and encumber Jeremy to spend money out of it.
and that's fine.
That's
In
what
the
I would
short
like.
term.
Is that what
Cool.
you 2 want?
Yeah.
Just, I mean, we're talking about Volt toilets, but we'll get off the
Well,
top.
the vault toilets, Tom's already basically taken care of, right?
Perfect.
Am I correct?
Yeah, other than the 2 things we need for installation. And I can take care of those. I just need to write a letter and go point and have a contractor do
Yeah.
some stuff. They'll be happy to do it.
So right now, through June 30th, I'd like to leave it like it is because it's already in parks in their regular budget and we already have transfers going in for the bills that we have currently. I talked to Dawn and I don't think the new grant, I don't think we'll receive that until after the beginning of the new fiscal year. So through the budget process, I'd like to set up a new sub-department under parks just for Spence, starting July 1.
Yeah.
That work for you?
Yeah, that's fine. And then I could do that in the short term. And if we get tourism and or a rec that's streaked off the ground, then goes that.
That work on Stephanie and Tom.
Yeah.
Do you want, I did like a pre-budget for it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And-
Okay.
Or just that sub-fund?
So is that, I mean, Tom asked a question, which I think is a good one. So we're still having Tom and Stephanie do what they do with parks and then
Minus
having
Spence.
Jeremy separately do Spence. Is that the consensus of the board?
Yep.
5-2, okay.
And then when you do the designation at the end of the fiscal year for the next one, Jeremy's name will be under parks along with Stephanie.
So that he can do the specs.
else?
And you keep doing what you're doing. Which I think is a good.
One more well to put in.
Anything else?
Do you guys want to copy?
Sure.
That's the sub fund.
I love your spreadsheet.
Vicki, anything else, big picture
This goes
before we adjourn? For the good of the order.
That's from Jeremy's worksheet.
Thank you all.
Not from me, thank you. All right, so we'll be adjourned at 9:51.